This lesson is on parsing multiple values that are contained in a single string, a delimited string, and we're going to parse them using JavaScript. Now, what this is all about is it's preparing us to use Ajax programming. That's the point of this chapter that we're in. Ultimately, we're going to get to be doing some Ajax work. Ajax is a program's ability to be able to connect the web page to a PHP program without submitting the whole web page and having PHP return a whole web page back. Instead, JavaScript will pass some data to a PHP program through a thread that we're going to set up using a special JavaScript object, and then the PHP program will return some data to us, and JavaScript will act on that data to make a change on the web page. So this little program is going to prepare us for dealing with some of the data that will come back from an Ajax PHP program. Let's look at the form here. It's just got three names that we can enter. First name, middle name, and last name. And now I'll go ahead and click the Display Full Name button. So voila, it just takes that and puts it in a hidden div down below and displays it in red text. Let's go look at the code. Now, at the very top of the program, of course, we have the JavaScript functions defined, but I always like to start down at the body where we call those functions. Notice again I have a name and an ID that has the same value, first name, middle name, last name. And here's the div down here. It's empty when we begin, but I've set the color of the text to be red by default, and its ID is message div. So how do we get this kicked off? On the button, on click event, I'm calling what I called the Ajax pretend function. Let's go to the top and look at that. So here it is. And here I'm setting up data that might come back from an Ajax call to a PHP program. I'm getting the element by ID on the first, middle, and last names, and I'm getting the value, what the user entered, and storing them in these variables that begin with Ajax, first, middle, and last. I'm concatenating these together, and I'm putting a pipe in between them. Now notice, again, JavaScript uses a plus sign, not a dot, the way PHP does to concatenate strings together. So we got to do it this way. It's actually a little bit more unwieldy, but this is the way it has to be done in JavaScript. The dots, like over here, mean something completely different to JavaScript. So we got first, middle, last, delimited by a pipe. And then I put that all into a name info, and I call a function called showNameInfo where I pass that to it. So what this emulates is in a PHP program that's called through an Ajax call, it may return a delimited string back to the JavaScript. And this is what's going to help us deal with it. Let's look at the function showNameInfo. This is the delimited string. Now, again, we look at the right hand of the equal sign. The way this reads in JavaScript is it says, here's the name info, split that, will you? Split that, look for this delimiter, split it up into elements of an array, and then return it over here. Now, we don't have an equivalent of the list function that we had in PHP where we could split it into individual variable names right off the bat. So it comes back as an array, and I'm going to explicitly take the step of doing that. So the first element of the array in position 0 goes in the first name. Second element in position 1, middle, and the third element in position 2 goes to the last name. Now I've got everything pulled apart again. I'm building up a variable called myHTML with a paragraph, first name. Now look, I'm concatenating a space. I can't just put this all between double quotes the way I did in PHP where I could make one big long string and put the space in between there. It won't interpolate variables the way PHP will. You have to break that out separately the way I'm doing here. So a string plus another string that happens to be in a variable plus a string that's one space. And again, middle name, string that's another space, all the way down to the end paragraph. So that's how you build this up. And I just called it myHTML. So I get the message div, get element by ID for the message div, put it over here, and that's a pointer to the div. Now I'm going to change the inner HTML. Remember, inner HTML is whatever appears between the div and the end div area. So I've changed whatever was there before, happen to just be spaces right now, but it changes it to what I have in the my HTML variable I built up here. And we saw that happen. The cool thing again, with JavaScript, we don't have to go up to the server and wait for a response. It happens right on the local computer, the PC or Mac, wherever you're running this. It happens right there within the browser software. This ends our lesson on breaking up a string, a delimited string, with JavaScript.